What up fam, welcome back to 88-Bit Tech. I'm AJ and today we are going to be benchmarking one of the best value GPUs that you can get new under $200. $169 to be exact, and that is the Intel ARC A580 8GB. This card is surprisingly capable at 1440p gaming and can easily handle 1080p. The drivers have matured enough that I am more than comfortable recommending it now. We're testing it in 24 titles against another great budget option that you can get under $200, and that's the AMD RX 6600 for $189. Ideally, I would have liked to test it against the RTX 3060 because 12GB, because performance-wise they're all going to be about the same. However, I didn't have a 3060 on hand. I did, however, have an EVGA RTX 3060 Ti that I will be comparing it against. So here are the three cards that I actually have. It's the ASRock Challenger Intel ARC A580, and you can get that for $170 from Amazon brand new. The RX 6600 is also at a really great price at $189. And you can no longer find the EVGA RTX 3060 Ti new, but I just wanted to throw it in here so you can see what a renewed pricing is on, at least on Amazon. So it's still pretty pricey. It's going to be a significant jump in performance, but at least you'll have an idea of what we're looking at. Ideally, I would have actually liked to compare these two cards against the Intel ARC A750 because it is a really great price as well, and if I had the option I'd go with the A750 over the A580, but I don't have it, so we're going with the A580 here. But just know that the A750 will generally perform better than the RX 6600. We'll beat it out in most titles. However, the 3060 Ti will still be faster than the A750. The normal 3060 12GB is what I would have liked to compare it against. The price of performance for the 3060 12GB is completely terrible. This card is not a good card unless you can get it for a really good price, but for its brand new price, there are just way better options to go for. The only NVIDIA card that you can get for under $200 that I guess you can look at is the RTX 3050 6GB, and this is also a really crap card that I 100% would not recommend unless you can get it for like a really great price. This will be outperformed by every other card that I said before. So the Intel ARC A580, RX 6600, they will leave this card in the dust. Avoid this card. If you're going to be spending that kind of money already, do not get the 3050 6GB. Let's go over the test specifications here. We are running these GPUs in my main rig and running a Ryzen 7 5800X with dual channel memory, 32GB at 3600 megatransfers per second at CL18 speeds. The games that we're going to be running are going to be running off of either a King Fast SATA SSD or a Samsung 980 Pro. And then as far as the GPU, right now I have my 3070 back in there. However, yeah, I swapped them out. And it's going to be running the latest drivers. So for AMD it's like 2410.1 and the latest NVIDIA drivers as well. For Intel, it did take me several weeks to make this video. So there's been a few new iterations of the drivers, which for Intel is huge. Because typically with driver updates for Intel, you do get boost in performance. So most likely the numbers you're going to see here, you're actually going to get slightly better performance with the latest drivers. The drivers that I'm using here are from 10/29, so October 29th. Before I get into the in-game benchmarks, guys, this video took a really long time for me to do. I have a full-time job, so testing 24 games in 2 different resolutions and trying to account for any errors and things like that took a really, really long time. So I would really appreciate it if you could give this video a like, subscribe if you find it useful, so I can keep making more content like this. And without further ado, let's get into the benchmarks. Before I get into it further, I forgot to mention that we are running a very mild undervolt for the RX 6600 and the RTX 3060 Ti. It's a 10% undervolt with the power limit set to max for all cards. Unfortunately, at the time of recording the Intel ARC A580's performance, I wasn't aware that you could get a third-party software to undervolt the ARC A580. You can't do it in the Intel ARC software. So instead, I actually did give it a plus 30 performance boost, as well as a plus 25 millivolt. So I did overclock it a little bit. Shout out to ETA Prime for the stable overclocks. I just pulled it off of his budget 1440p gaming PC that he did. I'll leave a link to that video in the description, or probably somewhere in this this video here, so you can check it out. So the Intel ARC A580 is overclocked, so trying to get the best performance out of it here. In the future, if I do end up testing more ARC cards, I will download that software and do an undervolt as well. And as far as the test goes, we're comparing it, the averages and the 1% lows. We're testing it in two different resolutions, 1080p and 1440p at maximum settings with upscaling disabled. And then if it is enabled, I will let you know. Everything is being compared to the Intel ARC card, so keep that in mind as we go through these percentages. So first up, we have Baldur's Gate 3 in native ultra settings in 1080p. We actually get a pretty surprising result here. We find that the ARC A580 is 14% faster than the RX 6600 and 9% faster in the 1% lows. However, with the RTX 3060 Ti, we do get a boost. The 3060 Ti is 16% faster than the ARC A580 and 6% faster in the 1% lows. Now at 1440p, we still get playable frames, with the ARC card still being 20% faster than the RX 6600 in the averages and 11% faster in the 1% lows. The 3060 Ti is 9% faster than the Intel ARC in the average and 22% faster in the 1% lows. For Blackmyth Wukong, we ran the in-game benchmark at native resolution, medium settings. And in 1080p, we do see that the RX 6600 is 17% faster than the Intel ARC card at 51 average FPS, and the 1% lows is 11% faster at 41 versus 35. The 3060 Ti does get a 52% boost in the average FPS at 70 and a 57% boost in the 1% lows at 55. At 1440p, we do get a bit of a different result here in the averages. We do get 37 average FPS at 1440p, which is a 9% boost over the RX 6600, and they tie in the 1% lows. The RTX 3060 Ti does get a significant 41% boost in the averages, jumping up to 52, and the 1% lows going to 46. Keep in mind that this is at native, however, I am running the native anti-aliasing for each of these softwares, so get XeSSA, FSRAA, and DLAA. I did enable FSR frame generation just to see if we can get this to be more playable at 1440p, and we did. With the ARC A580, we did get 56 average FPS, and the ARC 6600 did get 58, with 1% low at 49 versus 47 in the ARC A580. So with a little bit of upscaling, or not even upscaling, with a little bit of frame generation magic, you can get the ARC A580 and the RX 6600 to play Blackmyth Wukong at a 1440p experience and do it at a decent frame rate as well. Borderlands 3 in DX12 mode at native resolution and the highest settings, which is called Badass. We do see a 1% boost in the average FPS over the RX 6600, but that's really a margin of error, so it's basically the same performance for the ARC A580 and the RX 6600 at 1080p. We do get a 22% boost in the average FPS over the ARC A580, hitting a 96 FPS at 1080p and 75 in the 1% lows, which is a 17% increase. Moving on over to 1440p, we do see that the ARC takes another win here, getting a 57 average FPS, an 8% win over the RX 6600. But no surprise here, the 3060 Ti gets a 23% boost to the average and a 19% boost to the 1% lows, getting 70 and 57 respectively over the ARC A580. So Call of Duty Warzone native extreme settings in the two resolutions. There's a bit of a caveat here. These tests took me weeks to complete. So in that time frame, the original 3060 Ti was tested on the previous upload before Black Ops 6 came out, and the RX 6600 and ARC A580 were tested when the Black Ops 6 collab started for Warzone. And many of you may know this already, but the Black Ops 6 Warzone update completely broke the game in optimization and really destroyed performance. So you're going to see a huge difference in performance. I mean, the 3060 Ti is already a better card to run for these games. In most of these games that we're going to be testing today, it's a more powerful card, or at least it's a more graphically powerful card. So take these with a grain of salt. The Intel ARC cards here do not do well in Warzone, or at least not in the most recent implementation of Warzone, where we see the RX 6600 getting a 73% increase in the averages, going from 49 to 85 average FPS, and the 1% lows also getting a 20% increase, going from 35 to 42. The 3060 Ti gets a comically large 188% boost to the average FPS, getting 141, and the 1% lows gets a 46% boost over the Intel ARC A580 at 51 average FPS. Moving on to 1440p, the results are pretty much the same. We get a 97% boost in the average FPS, going from 75 versus the 38 on the ARC card. And then the 1% lows gets a 25% boost from 35 to 28 there, 28 to 35 there. The RTX 3060 Ti gets another comical boost in the average FPS at 129 average FPS and 1440p native. In extreme settings, we had 239 boost over the Intel ARC A580, and the RTX 3060 Ti's 1% low is at 43%. Is 43% higher at 40 FPS over the ARC A580. So it's clear here that the ARC A580 still has some optimization to do when it comes to modern titles, because it should honestly be performing much better than this, but it simply is not. If your main game that you play is Warzone, I would steer clear of the ARC cards, just because of the simple fact that they just do not perform. Maybe in the last 4 updates they do, but I can't keep testing every time there's an update. Just YouTube to see if anybody has a latest update on this particular card. Maybe I'll do it in the future, but as of right now, it does not look good, at least with the Black Ops 6 result. On to Counter-Strike 2, running at native very high at 1080p. We do see the RX 6600 get a small 6% boost in the average FPS over the ARC A580, and the biggest difference here is in the 1% lows. The RX 6600 gets 82 over the 54 in the ARC A580, which is a 50% boost in the 1% lows. And even more so still, the 3060 Ti gets 202 average FPS, which is a 44% boost over the ARC A580. And the average is, the 1% lows is 59% faster over the ARC A580 as well. Moving on to 1440p results, we do see that trend continue, with the RX 6600 being 7% faster than the ARC A580 in the averages and 19% faster in the 1% lows. The RTX 3060 Ti faster still at 63% faster than the ARC A580 at 156 average FPS at 1440p, and 52% faster with an 88 versus the 58 in the ARC A580. That being said, all cards are more than playable at high refresh rates in CS2. You can always turn down the settings to be more competitive. In Cyberpunk 2077, native resolution, ultra settings, 1080p, we get another surprising result here. The ARC A580 is 17% faster than the RX 6600, getting 60 average FPS versus the RX 6600 at 60. And the 1% lows is also quite a considerable jump over the RX 6600. We have a 15% boost over that one at 54 average FPS versus 47. The 3060 Ti is faster still though, at 19% faster, getting an average 83 FPS at 1080p, and 9% faster, getting 59 over 50 versus the 54 over the ARC A580 and the 1% lows. Moving on to 1440p, the trend continues, and we do have the ARC A580 taking a huge win and is 37% faster than the RX 6600 in the average FPS and 34% faster in the 1% lows. The RTX 3060 Ti is faster still again, but only marginal this time. Well, I mean, maybe not in the averages. We get an average, it's 53%, or it's 10% faster, getting 53 over 48 on the ARC A580, and then the 1% lows is only 5% faster, going 41 versus 39 in the Intel ARC A580. I did also run some upscaling in 1440p just to see if we can get these to be a bit more of a playable experience in the ARC A580 and the RX 6600, and we did. So with the ARC A580, we were able to run XeSS 1.3 set to quality, no frame generation enabled, and we were able to get 60 average FPS with a 1% low of 49. With the RX 6600 running XeSS 1.3 as well at ultra quality and using the FSR 3.1 frame generation mod, we were able to get 70 average FPS with a 1% low of 58. So you can get a more than playable experience at 1440p in Cyberpunk 2077. And it looked really good because XeSS 1.3, at least when it comes to its upscale quality, is very, very similar to DLSS, and it's better, much better than FSR 3. In Fortnite, we did a couple of different tests here. So we actually ran it in DX12 mode and performance mode, for the APIs. So we'll get into the results for that. So this is Fortnite in native TAA epic settings, or epic textures at least. And in 1080p DX12 mode, we find that the RX 6600 is 53% faster in the averages at 89 versus 58, and 74% faster in the 1% lows at 75 versus 43 over the ARC A580. Faster still, once again, over the ARC is the RTX 3060 Ti. We get 64% faster, getting 95 average FPS, and the 1% lows are 26% faster than the ARC A580 at 54 versus 43. Moving on to 1080p performance mode, we do get a substantial boost in the FPS across all the cards, obviously, and a very slight win. The RX 6600 just slightly beats out the ARC A580 with a 3% increase, going from 344 to 356. However, the 1% lows are a different story, with the ARC A580 trailing quite far behind. The RX 6600 is 62% faster, and the 1% lows at 152 versus the 94. 3060 Ti once again is faster still over the ARC A580, getting 418 average FPS versus ARC's 344, which is a 22% increase. And in the 1% lows, we also get a 55% increase from 94 to 146. Jumping into the 1440p results at DX12, we do find that the ARC card actually did much better in the 1% lows, getting a 27% boost to the 1% lows over the RX 6600, but the averages are much higher on the RX 6600 at 30% higher, with 65 versus the 50. The 3060 Ti is 72% faster than the ARC card, getting 86 average FPS and 21% faster than the 1% lows at 46. Moving on to the 1440p performance mode settings, we do have, once again, a very small win for the RX 6600, getting 4% faster, so 308 versus 319 in the averages, or 81% lows and 107 1% lows, a 34% boost to the RX 6600. The 3060 Ti gets 28% faster than the ARC A580 at 394, and 28% faster in the 1% lows at 102 versus the 80. Forza Horizon 5 at native resolution, extreme settings, so that's the highest in-game settings there. We do have the RX 6600 being 9% faster, 71 versus the 65. However, the 1% lows are actually better on the ARC A580, getting 4% faster than the RX 6600 at 55 versus 53. The RTX 3060 Ti, on the other hand, gets a whopping 45% faster over the ARC card at 94 average FPS, and 40% faster than the 1% lows at 77. Moving on to 1440p, the trend changes a bit here, with the RX 6600 getting an overall win in the averages at 58 versus 55, so a 5% increase, and then the 1% lows, pretty much margin of error here, 2% increase from 45-46 there. 3060 Ti at 1440p gets a 49% increase to the averages at getting 82, and the 1% lows gets a 58% increase at 71. Ghost of Tsushima at native resolution, running very high settings. In the 1080p results, we do have the RX 6600 winning out, getting 58 over 56, so a 4% increase. And the 1% lows got a 26% increase over the ARC A580, getting 49 over that versus 39 in the ARC A580. The 3060 Ti is 11% faster, getting 62 at and the 1% lows are 31% faster at 51 versus 39 in the ARC A580. At 1440p, this does change a bit, with the ARC A580 getting a substantial win over the RX 6600, being 21% faster in the average FPS and 4% faster in the 1% lows. The 3060 Ti, however, is faster still, with the average being 11% faster than the ARC A580, so we get 52 over versus 47, and 39% faster in the 1% lows, getting 39 versus 28 in the ARC A580. Ghostwire Tokyo, running native resolution at the highest quality settings. We do find that the ARC gets a win here over the RX 6600. An 11% boost in performance, over 99 versus 89 in the RX 6600, and 18% faster in the 1% lows, getting 59 versus 50 over its AMD competition. 3060 Ti is faster still in the averages, getting 15% faster from going 114 versus the 99. However, it matches in the 1% lows to the ARC A580. In 1440p, the ARC A580 is 11% faster than the RX 6600, getting 61 versus 55. However, the RX 6600 is 24% faster, getting 36 versus 29. The 3060 Ti is faster still, getting 76 average FPS, 25% faster than the ARC A580, and 35, which is 21% faster in the 1% lows versus the 29 in the ARC A580 here. And the ARC cards still struggle to perform at the level that they should be in GTA 5. So running this at native resolution, max graphics, no post-FX or advanced graphics. And in 1080p, we get the RX 6600 being 130 average FPS, 30% faster than the 100 that we see on the ARC A580. And in the 1% lows, the RX 6600 is 21% faster at 82 versus 68 in the ARC A580. The 3060 Ti is 37% faster with 137 average FPS versus the 100 in the ARC A580, and 95 in the 1% lows, which is a 40% increase to the 68 on the ARC A580. Moving on to 1440p, this is a bit of a strange result. The numbers didn't change much, really, from going from 1080p to 1440p, and I tested it multiple times, so I'm not exactly sure what was going on there. However, it doesn't change the fact that the RX 6600 and the 3060 Ti are faster still. 19% faster specifically for the AMD card here. We get 118 versus 99, and 43% faster in the 1% lows with 93 versus 65. The 3060 Ti is 21% faster, getting 120 over versus 99, and 31% faster in the 1% lows, getting 85 over the 65. Helldivers 2 running native ultra settings with low vegetation. The RX 6600 and the ARC A580 in the 1% lows at 1080p perform pretty much the same, getting 46 and 47. However, the 1% lows do appear to be faster in the ARC A580, getting 42 versus 40. This is a 5% increase. The 3060 Ti here is 46% faster than the ARC A580, getting 67 over versus the 46 in the ARC A580. And the 1% lows are also 38% faster, hitting 58 versus 42 in the ARC A580. At 1440p, we do get a bit of a different scenario here, with the ARC A580 pulling ahead of the RX 6600 at 9%, getting 36 versus 33. And in the 1% lows, also getting a 3% increase, but this is pretty much margin of error, 31 versus 30. The 3060 Ti at 1440p is 53% faster, hitting 55, and 52% faster, getting 47 versus the 31 in the 1% lows. I did run upscaling on this one just to see if we can get more playable frames out of the RX 6600 and the ARC A580, and we did. So at 1440p, running ultra quality, the in-game upscaler, and the settings set to medium, the ARC A580 did reach 53 average FPS with a 1% low of 49, and the RX 6600, also running ultra quality and medium settings, did reach 58 average FPS with the same 1% low of 49. Hogwarts Legacy sees pretty much no difference in the averages here. 65 versus 64, 2% faster, the RX 6600. However, the 1% lows, the ARC A580 is actually 10% faster than the RX 6600, getting 32 versus 29. 3060 Ti is faster still, 20% faster to be exact, over the ARC, getting 77 over 64, and 6% faster, getting 34 versus 32. In 1440p, the ARC A580 pulls ahead of the RX 6600 in the averages, getting 16% faster at 52 versus 45, and in the 1% lows, we do get 4% faster with 27 versus 26. 3060 Ti is faster still with a 15% boost over the ARC A580 at 60 versus 52, and 7% faster in the 1% lows at 29 versus 27. Jurassic World Evolution running native ultra settings, yet the RX 6600 is 4% faster at 121 average FPS versus 116, 5% faster in the 1% lows at 99 versus 94. The 3060 Ti is 6% faster in the average FPS over the ARC A580 at 116. However, the ARC A580, I actually forgot to write this down, but the ARC 580 is 9% faster in the 1% lows over the 3060 Ti. At 1440p, the ARC A580 is 6% faster, getting 89 average FPS over 80 versus 82. At 1440p, the ARC A580 is 6% faster than the RX 6600, getting 89 versus 52, and 6% faster in the 1% lows, 77 versus 66. The 3060 Ti and the averages is 6% faster than the ARC A580, getting 95 versus the ARC's 89. However, the ARC A580, once again, at 1440p, is 3% faster in the 1% lows over the 3060 Ti at 75. In Kingdom Come Deliverance, native ultra-high settings, the RX 6600 is 14% faster than the ARC A580, getting 72 versus 63. And in the 1% lows, we find that it's 38% faster than the ARC A580, getting 36 versus 26 in the ARC A580. The 3060 Ti is faster as well, 24% faster to be exact, 78 versus 63, and 27% faster in the 1% lows with 33 versus the 26. Moving on to 1440p, the ARC A580 is 2% faster, pretty much margin of error here, 2% faster than the RX 6600 at 55 versus 44. However, the RX 6600 is 28% faster in the 1% lows, getting 32 versus 25. The 3060 Ti is 16% faster than the ARC A580 with 64 versus 55, and 20% faster in the 1% lows at 30 versus 25. Up next, we have Path of Exile running native resolution at max settings. So for 1080p, we do find the RX 6600 is 19% faster in the averages, getting 203 versus 187, and 61% faster than the 1% lows at 129 versus 80. The 3060 Ti is faster still with 36% boost in performance with average FPS of 255 versus 187, 69% faster in the 1% lows with 135 versus 80. Moving on to 1440p, the RX 6600 in the average is 10% faster than the ARC A580, 142 versus 129. However, I don't know why this happened, but it happened multiple times when I was testing the RX 6600, but the averages in the RX 6600 in the 1440p results were consistent in every test. Not exactly sure what is happening there, but the ARC A580 gets a whopping 145% increase to the 1% lows over the RX 6600 with 71 versus 29, and the RTX 3060 Ti is 38% faster in the averages with 178 versus 129, and 35% faster at 96 versus 71. Red Dead Redemption 2 native Vulkan API with the slider set to the favor quality maximum. At 1080p, we do see that the ARC A580 is 20% faster than the RX 6600, getting 79 average FPS versus 66, and 9% faster in the 1% lows, getting 59 versus 54. The 3060 Ti is 10% faster than the ARC A580, getting 87 versus 79 in the average FPS, and 22% faster in the 1% lows, getting 72 versus 59. Moving on to the 1440p results, we do get the ARC getting 22% faster than the RX 6600, 61 versus 50 average FPS, and 17% faster in the 1% lows, getting 49 versus 42. The 3060 Ti is 16% faster in the average FPS at 71 versus 61, and 22% faster in the 1% lows, getting 60 versus 49. In Skyrim native ultra best quality, I did use a mod to remove the frame rate cap of 60 so we could get it higher, but it basically just hit the monitor's refresh rate, and mine was 144 that I was testing this on. The RX 6600 is 11% faster than the ARC A580 in the average FPS, getting 144 versus 130, and 66% faster in the 1% lows, getting 131 versus 79. And the RTX 3060 Ti is also faster than the ARC A580, but this time only 9% faster in the average FPS, getting 142 versus 130. However, the ARC A580 actually beats out the RTX 3060 Ti in the 1% lows, getting 79 versus 75, a 5% increase to the ARC A580. Now, the RX 6600 and the 3060 Ti are both faster in the average FPS by 4% and 6% respectively compared to the ARC A580, getting 142, 144 versus the 136 here. However, the ARC A580 in 1440p beats out both the RX 6600 and the RTX 3060 Ti, being 9% and 18% faster, getting 120 versus 110 and 102 in the 1% lows. Star Wars Battlefront 2 in native DX11 Ultra settings, we have the RX 6600 being 34% faster than the ARC A580, getting 143 versus 107, 26% faster in the 1% lows, getting 92 versus 73. The 3060 Ti is 39% faster, getting 149 versus 107, and 34% faster in the 1% lows, getting 98 versus 73. Moving on to 1440p results, the RX 6600 is 15% faster than the average FPS, getting 101 versus 88. However, the ARC A580 is 55% faster than the 1% lows versus the RX 6600, getting 62 versus 40. The 3060 Ti is 30% faster in the averages with 114 versus the 88, and 23% faster in the 1% lows, getting 76 versus 62. Starfield is another game where I did multiple tests. So we ran it in native resolution and also with FSR 3 set to quality and frame generation enabled, just so I could see how well it performed here in a very tough game that's still difficult to run for a lot of cards. So in ultra settings here, in native 1080p native resolution, we find that the RX 6600 is 3% faster, getting 31 versus 30 in the averages, and 67% faster in the 1% lows, getting 25 versus 15. The 3060 Ti is faster still with 37% in the averages, getting 41 versus 30, and getting in the 1% lows, it is 67% faster, getting 25 versus the ARC A580's 15. So similar performance in the 1% lows for both the RX 6600 and 3060 Ti. Moving on to 1080p results with FSR 3 plus frame generation at set to 67% render scale here, and we see that the RX 6600 is 15% faster, getting 70 versus 61, and 54% faster in the 1% lows, getting 57 versus 37. 3060 Ti is also faster at 39%. 39% faster, getting 85 versus 61, and 59% faster in the 1% lows, getting 59 versus 37. Now, moving on to the 1440p results, the RX 6600 is 9% faster in the average FPS, getting 25 versus 23, and 82% faster in the 1% lows, getting 20 versus the 11 on the ARC A580. 3060 Ti is faster still with a 43% increase in performance, getting 33 average FPS versus 23, and 109% increase in the 1% lows, getting 23 versus 11. Moving on to 1440p with FSR3 frame generation and at 67% render scale, which is quality. The RX 6600 is 9% faster than the ARC A580, getting 58 versus 43 in the averages, and 42% faster than the 1% lows, getting 47 versus 33 in the ARC A580 there. The 3060 Ti is faster by 28%, getting 68 average FPS versus 53, and the 1% lows, similar performance to the RX 6600, getting 42% faster than the ARC, with 47 versus the 33. It seems like the Intel ARC card still needs some optimization work, because it should perform better here as well than what you're seeing. So it needs some optimization for Starfield. Maybe it's been updated in the latest updates. I do not know. Hopefully in the newest updates, they do address this as well. Running Subnautica in native resolution, max settings, 1080p results here. We do find that the ARC A580 is 2% faster than the average FPS, getting 143 versus 140. Pretty much margin of error there. However, what's not margin of error is the 1% lows. The RX 6600 is 50% faster, getting 105 versus 70. The 3060 Ti is 15% faster than the averages, getting 164 versus 143, and 34% faster in the 1% lows, getting 94 versus the 70 in the ARC A580. We do get a bit of a different result in 1440p. However, the ARC A580 is 12% faster than the RX 6600, getting 95 versus 85, and 11% faster in the 1% lows, getting 60 versus 54. 3060 Ti is the overall winner again here, with the 29% faster, getting 123 average FPS versus 95, and 33% faster, getting 80 versus the 60 in the ARC A580. Now, Valorant is a very easy game to play, as you can tell here by the immense frames overall. Valorant will be able to be played at a very high frame rate on all of these cards, if you have a monitor that supports that. But we'll get into the results regardless. The RX 6600 is 13% faster than the average FPS, getting 451 versus 400, and 22% faster in the 1% lows, getting 235 versus 192. The 3060 Ti is faster still, 22% to be exact, at 488 versus the 400, and in the 1% lows is 30% faster at 249 versus 192. Moving on to 1440p results here, we do have the RX 6600 getting a 7% lead in performance over the ARC A580, so 378 versus 353 average FPS, and in the 1% lows, the RX 6600 is 34% faster, getting 250 versus 187. The RTX 3060 Ti is 16% faster than the average FPS at 409 versus 353, and 11% faster in the 1% lows, getting 208 versus the 187 in the ARC A580. Benchmarks that out of all the games I tested, this is probably the most surprising result. So we were playing Witcher 3 Wild Hunt in native resolution, running TAAU with the Ultra preset. And the ARC A580 is 36% faster than the RX 6600 in the average FPS, getting 75 versus 55. And in the 1% lows, it's actually 38% faster than the RX 6600, getting 62 versus 45. The 3060 Ti is only 1% faster than, which is pretty much margin of error, than the ARC A580 at 1080p. However, the ARC A580 is 27% faster than the RTX 3060 Ti in the 1% lows, getting 62 versus 49. So overall, the ARC A580 at 1080p is a better performer for this game. And we do get a similar result also in 1440p, with the Intel ARC A580 being 53% faster than the RX 6600, getting 49 versus 32, and 54% faster than the 1% lows, getting 43 versus 28. The RTX 3060 Ti does pull ahead though in 1440p results with a 6% boost in performance, getting 52 versus 49. However, in the 1% lows, the ARC A580 pulls ahead again, is 16% faster than the 3060 Ti at getting 43 versus 37. So it's actually a smoother experience still at 1440p with the ARC A580. I did run upscaling on the ARC A580 and RX 6600 separately to see if we can get more playable frames, and obviously we will be able to. With the ARC A580 at 1440p, turning on XeSS at ultra quality, so that's actually upscaling at a higher quality than 720p. I think it's upscaling from 1080p actually to 1440. Not sure, but it's running XeS ultra quality, which is similar to DLSS quality, and we're getting 67 FPS average with a 1% low of 55 at 1440p. More than playable, and it looked beautiful. And then the RX 6600 running FSR2 sets of quality, we do get a boost in the average FPS to 55 and a boost in the 1% lows to 44, but it's still shy of what the ARC is doing. So if your main game is Witcher, the ARC A580 is the card you should get. And last but not least, we do have another game here from the Epic Store. It's the Zenless Zone Zero, running at native ultra settings. We do have the ARC A580 being 31% faster than the RX 6600, getting 149 versus 114, and 14% faster in the 1% lows, getting 92 versus 81. The 3060 Ti is 13% faster than the averages, getting 169 versus 149. However, the ARC A580 is 2% faster than the 1% lows versus the 3060 Ti here. So, I mean, that's pretty much margin of error, but still, that is a little bit of a boost in the 1% lows over the ARC A580. Moving on to 1440p, the ARC A580 still gets a 31% over the RX 6600 average FPS, getting 115 versus 88. And in the 1% lows, it is 26% faster than the RX 6600, getting 83 versus 66. And the RTX 3060 Ti in the averages is still faster than the ARC card, getting 7% faster, getting 123 versus 115. However, the biggest difference here at 1440p is that the ARC A580 is much smoother experience, getting a 48% boost in the 1% lows at 83 versus the 56 on the 3060 Ti. Here are the overall averages of those 24 games. As you can see, overall, the trend follows that the RX 6600 is slightly faster than the ARC A580, and the 3060 Ti is much faster than both of them in 1080p. However, at 1440p, it becomes more margin of error overall, but the 3060 Ti still pulls ahead quite considerably. I should mention though that out of the 24 games, in 12 of those games, the ARC A580 got a win in the average FPS over the RX 6600. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt being a particular standout, performing actually better than the 3060 Ti, which I definitely did not expect. But it's not all good news as we check the power consumption of these cards. Got the average power consumption in 3 separate games and took the average, so Cyberpunk 2077, Fortnite, and Warzone. And as you can see here, the ARC A580 at 1080p uses 89% more wattage than the RX 6600. The RTX 3060 Ti only uses 5% more wattage to get way more performance overall. 26% more performance for 5% more wattage on the RTX 3060 Ti. At 1440p, it's still 85% more watts used than the RX 6600. This should be no surprise. The RX 6600 is a legendary card when it comes to power efficiency. You get really good performance and it uses very little power to do so. The 3060 Ti still uses more wattage overall, but you get a 28% boost in performance overall for 8% more wattage. So that's actually not a bad result at all. However, keep in mind that these two cards are undervolted, the 3060 Ti and the RX 6600, and the ARC A580 is the opposite. It's overclocked. So it's using a bit more power than it normally would. So there you have it, guys. The ARC A580 is an absolutely exceptional card for the price, and it only keeps getting better with every driver release from Intel, and they're definitely dedicated to keep improving that performance of those cards. especially with Battle Mage right around the corner. It's an easy recommendation for me. However, I would save and spend a bit more money to get the A750 because the A750 will beat out the RX 6600 in most cases and get closer to the 3060 Ti. It's going to be more in line with the ARC A770. However, even the A770 will still be not as fast as the 3060 Ti. Got any questions? Write them in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.